Hello and welcome to another beautiful interview for the Soulful Business series. Today I'm with a very experienced wellness practitioner, Sarah K. Jones, who has taken another leap in her business. She is now mentoring other wellness practitioners in the healing and health industry. And Sarah K. is certainly an inspiration when it comes to leading the way in business, soulful business, in a very integral, honest and true way. And you'll see that come through today as we speak together. Sarah K., welcome to this series. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you, sister. Thank you for having me.
Very exciting. So there's so much we want to delve into today, but one thing that stands out about you is how much courage you showed in the last year or so in reinventing your business, having been a healer and a clairvoyant for 10 years or so in a very successful practice. You decided that it was time to move on to a new cycle. So do you want to tell us a little bit about that and how you knew it was time?
It was a really organic process in the sense that it came as some very subtle inklings. But with those inklings, there was also this sense of I couldn't action anything yet. Like I'd get this whisper of, okay, I'm not going to be doing this for the rest of my life, and I really feel like I'm reaching the pinnacle of my work. But every time it would come, there was always this sense of, oh no, but there's nothing else behind it yet. There's no substance, there's no action, there's no calling there. So it was more like I kind of realised I just needed to acknowledge the thought. Okay, that's interesting. There's something changing soon. So that kind of happened actually for about 2 years, which in the end actually got really frustrating because I'm like, okay, I'm getting this inkling, but where's the action? And I, as much as I would want to push and change things or try to come up with in my mind of how I would change my work, what it would actually be, what it would look like, I keep finding myself at a loss and certainly hitting dead ends. So I just made peace with it and thought, look, the clarity is going to come whenever it comes. And just like we were talking before, about 1 year ago, just before my 35th birthday, I said to my partner before I went to bed, I said, babe, you know, something big's going to happen in my work, and I feel like I'm getting to that point where I just don't feel that same level of gusto and excitement about my work. And because I've been doing it for 13 years, you know, it's like I just needed not necessarily more of a challenge, but just something that really engaged other parts of me, not just the healing and intuitive part. And he said, all right, hon, just, you know, flick on it, just see what happens. And I remember waking up on my birthday, which was quite interesting because I didn't realise I'd kind of set the intentions for that clarity to come through. But I remember waking up on my birthday and I was kind of lying in bed, lulling, and it was like razor sharp right through my consciousness, whether it was my higher self or spirit, I'm really not sure. You know, there was this complete clarity of, this is the last year that I do my healing work and readings, and next year I start teaching, mentoring, coaching. And it was literally those two sentences that came through like a lightning bolt. And I remember just going, oh, relief for the clarity, but also just a real sense of, oh, I can relax now. It's like, okay, here's the step that's being shown to me next. But it also meant too that I had 9 months really to transition my business, to ease myself out of this work because I loved it.
Yeah.
And it felt like it would have been a really sudden kind of breakup with my client base who I loved and adored. And I felt like I couldn't fully rush into this new chapter or new transition. I had no idea what it was really meant to look like. So it was a really, really interesting 12 months leading up to the launch of kind of smelling my way through things.
Yeah, smelling. I like that.
Blindfolded, just kind of, I'd get a sense of something and okay, I need to follow that. And, you know, I've got a massive journal full of ideas and concepts and courses and products and that may never see the light of day, but it's like I just needed to get it out of my system as this clarity had come through. It's like a whole deluge of other stuff came through. But again, just knowing which ones require action will come in time, you know.
Yeah.
But it's been really, really massive.
I bet. And a lot of patience by the sound of it to just, you know, follow the breadcrumbs as you go without really knowing the end destination.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think it's something that is really valuable to people, whatever work they're in or business they have, is being able to really listen to their own personal timing when it is time to let go and move on and actually accept a new challenge, a new cycle of their own development in their work, whether they're in a job or not, or in a business. So thank you for explaining that process, because, and I think you're lucky too, because probably some people are out there probably thinking, oh my God, I wish I could have that clarity, you know, like you just woke up and there it is, like the voice in your head. So yeah, that's, I mean, you are an intuitive after all, of course, so that does. So tell me then, what advice would you give someone who is feeling like they're at that stage of, okay, my business is starting to, you know, it's kind of maybe a feeling of getting stale, or I'm outgrowing it, or, you know, I can't keep moving forward as it stands right now. What would you tell them?
There's probably a couple of things that come to mind, and the first one reminds me of something that's really relevant in my life right now. We've just moved to a beautiful house on the Sunshine Coast, and we have a veggie patch out the back. And so I've just planted some herbs out there just to start with, something that's pretty tame that I can't kill straight away.
Yeah.
And I've been checking them every day to see if they've grown every day. And there's a part of me that wants to hurry them up. And there's a part of me that's like, only if I water them more. What if do I need to put some mulch? Do they need fertilizer? Maybe if I, you know, and for me, the process of being led by your business, or being led by the consciousness of your business, really requires a lot of acceptance, a lot of patience, and the acceptance particularly is around the acceptance of just where it is right now, which means that if there's no clarity, if there's confusion, if it's just this this feeling in your gut, you know, as much as our mind wants to have the clarity, the answers right now, if it's not going to present itself, it's not going to present itself. And so for me, I think what actually kept me sane in that 2 years was just accepting that, okay, there's no other piece of information after this one statement of, something's going to change, something has to change in my waters. And so then the patience kind of sits quite closely next to that acceptance. So following on from that, forcing it's not going to work. So no matter how much I water those herbs, no matter how much I, you know, kind of talk to them and urge them to creep up through the soil, have their own time. And I know it's such an overused analogy, but it's so relevant because I was in the garden literally before we hopped on the camera. Sort of grown. And they haven't. So yeah, that seems to be a really big thing. There's something else that came to mind a moment ago, and that was, just be on the lookout for the small hints. And those small hints might sometimes be inquiring about a course, or wrapping something up. You know, I really got a sense, I was running certain courses when I was at the peak of my work, and I just got the sense of, oh no, it's time to drop that. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to run that this year. And a part of me freaked out, like, oh, but this has been it's been such a successful course for this amount of time, and what does this mean? But I kind of took the cues and took the hints and little, again, inklings of, oh, I really should just record this. Or I really should just take note of what that is, or have someone video this, that sort of thing. And it's like the big picture didn't really come into fruition or to sense, literally until 3 years later in total for a lot of things. I'm like, that's why I recorded that. Now I can use it for this, this, and this. And little hints along the way that if I'd have thought I was crazy, that I think I would have overlooked and missed some really great opportunities, because they were somehow tiny stepping stones in the big things. So that, of course, just really meant I had to just get over myself and not assume that I knew everything. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And assume that, oh, I can see how this is going to fit into the 20-year plan. Like, no,
I can relate to that. Yes. Yeah, because it's such a good point. Every creation, every business has its own timing, doesn't it? It's not something that we can override or force. We're actually co-creating with that business. So if we're not listening, then we're actually missing out on the opportunity for growth, aren't we?
Exactly. And I really see that in my daughter, and she's 2 years old, and the things that she tries to tell me in her mannerisms and in her words now that she's speaking and communicating. And I find on the days when I'm just have my head somewhere else, that I'm not really listening to her. I'm not really hearing what she's trying to say to me or to communicate to me. And when I actually really sit down and go, all right, okay, so what is she trying to explain? It's like, oh, I get it. Oh, that's easy. We'll just go into that, or we'll adjust this. And if I look back at my business, even in that 13 years of developing my business as a healer, I look at the milestone changes of season in that business, and that's exactly what it starts with me, is to slow down and listen and say, what's really being shown to me when bookings drop off in one area, or bookings surge in another course, or there's a particular service that's going gangbusters at the moment, that sort of thing. Like what we were saying before about having your finger on the pulse, like really aligning to the rhythm of beat, and then just acting accordingly.
Yeah, beautiful. I love your analogies with the body and the earth. Actually, that leads me to my next question is, for the people out there who want to know how do you actually tune in to your own rhythm, to yourself, what you're needing in your own business, and then of course what your business is needing. So how do you, that's partly an embodiment practice that you teach, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and it's a few things that come to mind. And the first thing that comes to mind for me is actually just having no opinions, nobody telling me what I should be doing with my business, but actually having the quiet time, having that, I guess, that communion, that intimate time with my business, where it's just her and I, we're hanging out on the back deck, we're having a chat about what needs to happen next, where is she wanting to step or tread next. And as much as there's really amazing guidance out there and courses, and absolutely I've attended many of them in my time, they've helped to fill my toolkit, but at the same time, the thing that has been the constant for me that I keep coming back to is, where are we at? Where are me and my business at? And so the more that I have that quiet time with her and kind of tune out the white noise of everyone's advice, everybody's external kind of view, the more I get that clarity. The second thing, and this is for me personally, is I have to dance. I have to move. I have to... It's not necessarily with the intent to get an answer at the end, but it's to actually just move the confusion through my body, or the anxiety, or the not knowing, or the frustration. So when I used to live in Melbourne, I used to go to 5 rhythms every week. And that actually 3 years that I went to 5 Rhythms religiously was when my business was at its absolute peak. You know, everything was really incredible, and I felt like I was the best I had ever been in my craft. And I look back and I realised that it was because every week I actually just emptied out, not to find something in the end, but actually just to empty out, if that makes sense. And the clarity actually came afterwards. There's something else that that popped up just as you asked that, and that was around the how. For me, it's a different type of emptying out, and that's just through journaling. Now, I have a special journal that basically holds all of my business ideas, because I tend to have these random ideas at random times of night that don't necessarily have legs, but I need to put them somewhere. And if I don't put them somewhere, like write them down, they fill up my head, they distract me, they confuse me. So, but the other purpose it serves is that sometimes I get this feeling inside that there's something that needs to be birthed now. What is it? And I'll literally go back to that journal and thumb through it, and something will jump out at me.
Wow.
That's it.
Yeah.
So I make it. That's the perfect fit right now. I was feeling it was something that was a 4-week course, or I was feeling like it was a particular type of service. But I'd already kind of half fleshed it out because I just did this brain dump. So that's one of the ways that I kind of empty my head. So I need to empty my body, I need to empty my head, and I need to stop listening to everybody else.
That's such brilliant practical advice. I love it. I love it. You're so bang on with that. Very valuable for the people out there wanting to tap into their intuition in their business. Now, I want to talk to you more about what you're doing now, Sarah Kate. I want to know what's your approach to mentoring wellness practitioners, you know, whether they're healers or, you know, alternative therapists or, you know, any sort of health practitioner. How do you work with them to bring their soul more fully into their work?
Yeah, there's a few ways. I've created a system of healing archetypes, which I've discovered that there's 8 main healing archetypes that exist in all healers, coaches, mentors, pretty much those that are called to service, to support others to reach their full potential in any way, whether it be through nutrition, physical, mental, spiritual. And I work with clients one-on-one to really unpack how these archetypal forces move through them. So in these archetypal forces, there's also a lot of information around very specific gifts and talents. And if there's one thing that I've learned in my 13 years as a practitioner, both struggling to then absolutely thriving, was the more I keep being me, the more abundance flows. And I know that it's so bleedingly obvious, and it's like, for me, it was a truth that was outside of myself. It's like, yeah, totally, that makes complete sense. I get that. But it was never something I really understood until I really, really went into that myself. Yeah. And so for me in my own life, when I really play on my strengths and I'm really leading with my strongest foot, which is the gifts and talents that come to me naturally, everything just figures itself out, you know. And of course, there's a practical side to business, but I really love guiding and directing my clients to really hone in and harness their gifts and their talents, because it's what they've came here to share. You know, they've cultivated this over lifetimes, and it's a wasted fuel, it's a wasted resource if it's kind of put to the side. If we believe that we need to be a particular type of kinesiologist or a particular type of naturopath. And one of the things that was my Achilles heel when I was a healer as well was also assuming that I needed to be like another practitioner because something worked for them.
Yeah.
And again, it kept taking me away from who I really was. You know, I had quirky ways of running, worked or I had creative ways of doing things that I thought, oh, no one else is doing it, so clearly it doesn't work. So I kept looking for proof, this social proof, I guess, outside of myself. And one thing that I keep seeing time and time again is that the more practitioners really start to tap into those gifts and own them, but also just unashamedly pour them into their business, it's like it becomes more playful.
Yeah.
They're just being themselves. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
And so that's one of the ways. So there's a whole process where clients can uncover what their lead healing archetype is, which is the foot that they lead with, but also helps them to discover what their veiled archetype is, which is, this is where the hidden gifts are. This is the parts of themselves that they don't show to the public. And for me, when I figured out what mine was, I realised these are all the things that I did in private, like my own personal rituals, you know, the things that I did with really tight sisters and girlfriends. And I would never dream of bringing this into my business. But I've realised that I love that, and that's who I am. And the more I bring that into my business, the more I'm me and the more relaxed I can be. And as it happens, it really magnetised a lot of people to me that resonate. Same. So the short answer to your question, because that was the long question, is I really truly believe that the strongest thing that we can do to support practitioners is to really help them to remember what their gifts, their talents, their strengths are, and that's where the true potency lies, and that's where the abundance and the shamelessness lies, you know. And by God, that's where the fun lies, you know.
Yeah.
It's so much more enjoyable doing stuff you love and giving yourself, signing off your own permission slip. I have full permission to do this because it's me. I don't care if no one else is doing it.
Yeah.
And that translates really powerful, I think, in a practitioner's work. And it doesn't matter if they're a mindfulness coach or if they're a personal trainer or a yoga teacher, you know, it's across the board. Yeah.
Brilliant. Yes, absolutely. And it's, you've articulated it so well, you know, like it is about fun. It's about, you know, like it's not taking what you're doing so seriously and trying to get it right. And it's also about wholeness. It's like, well, why would I leave any part of me out of my work? You know, my work isn't separate. This is, you know, still me. So I don't have to become anyone else. And I think it's such a simple concept, but something that very few really master. And, you know, you're one of them that, and you've been through a long journey with it, which is really cool, because to highlight that it's not something you snap your fingers and you're just like, oh, I'm me now and I feel comfortable in my work being me. You know, so you went through that transition from struggle to thriving in your work, and that was, you're saying that was the main difference, that main shift that you made, is it? Yeah.
Absolutely, definitely. And I really can't underestimate and can't stress enough the importance of just doing the really deep inner work. And look, practitioners by nature are always going to be attracted to exploring their inner landscape, which is amazing. But I feel as though sometimes we feel like we're done with it. Like there's always more. And it's not to say, there's a really fine line here, it's not to say that we always have to keep seeking something to heal, you know, feeling perfect, but it's more about just knowing that there will always be more to emerge. There will always be more that your soul literally throw up to the surface.
Yeah.
That, okay, time to just look at this. It's time to just explore this. And the thing that has kept me coming back to who I really am and what I excel in naturally, not that I learnt in the college, but what I excel at naturally, is doing the deep work. Every time shit comes up, getting the shovel, just getting in and just really appreciating what it's really giving me, because from my own experience, the strongest, the most powerful practitioners, again, no matter what their modality, are the ones that have done the deep work and continue to do the deep work, and know that they're not, whilst they are whole and perfect, they're still evolving. It's like they haven't kind of hung their hat up and gone, I'm done now.
You really see that. You see that in that industry, don't you? You know, you can tell the difference. The ones who are humble to their own evolution and that the journey is never over. And then the ones who reach a certain point and they're like, okay, I'm just going to stay here because I've done the work now.
Exactly. And, been there, done that. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And the business misses out, their clients miss out, and they miss out. So that comes back to the first point that we made was, you know, it's all about listening to the evolution of your business and your soul's evolution through your work. So beautiful. Thank you, Sarah Kay. I love it. Now I have to ask though, you know, the burning question is, well, what's your archetype? What are your gifts? We want to know.
Cool. Awesome. So my lead healing archetype is the mystic, which when I realised that for myself, it was, again, so bleedingly obvious. So the mystic embodies using intuition as the main tool or resource. So again, not something you can kind of teach, but something that unfolds over time. The more you trust it, the more you surrender to it. And so, of course, being an intuitive and doing readings and with my spiritual healing work, very much led by my intuition. That's something that, looking back, obviously I just kind of organically fell into that. So for me, that just makes complete sense. Now, my veiled healing archetype, so the archetype force that I've hidden, that is very strongly a part of me, is the shaman. And I've grown up having an idea around, you know, if you're going to be in front of people, there has to be a certain way that you behave. And to me, the shaman is quite uncut, quite unpolished, and really relishes in this relationship with Gaia, the relationship with nature, the relationship with cycles, seasons, you know. And in the last probably 7 to 8 years, the more that I've explored the depth of my own menstrual cycle and the power in that, and really exploring my own seasonal cycles in my body, but also incorporating more ceremony, more ritual, more things that really mark and delineate certain chapters in my life, the more my life personally and professionally has flourished. But I've never brought that into my work ever, which is really ironic because again, I look back and just it seems so obvious. But it was a part of me that was like, oh no, this is just what I like doing in my private time. And the more that I've brought that into my work, so when I would incorporate more ceremonial and ritualistic practices in my courses, even my mentoring sessions have an open ceremony and a closing ceremony, and they're separate sessions.
That's cool.
Mentoring sessions in between, because to me, I need to open the space, open the energy, open the circle, and then we need to complete it. We need to reflect. And the more that I've done that, the more I've just felt so much more in tune with, you know, I don't have to plan anything. I just have to be myself. And the marriage of my inner mystic and my inner shaman, I feel, is like the product is my current business. And again, it took me a while to kind of figure out that those two could play together and that those two could actually coexist and not have to be in separate rooms, you know, with a locked door. So I keep seeing really cool stuff happening with clients when they start to realise how these two forces within themselves needn't be leading and veiled. They can actually be united and be an expression of themselves. So,
cool. I love how you talk about the hidden archetype, because I think that's something that's often people don't realise, is that there is a set of gifts that sort of sit behind their most obvious gifts, right? And that's where the real gold is. Hey, it's like that's where, and that's often where the money is too, because when you incorporate those hidden gifts into your work, you start to really shine. You start to really stand out, don't you, as unique?
Exactly. And there's nothing worse than having or feeling as though you need to be a carbon copy of someone else.
Yeah.
And look, of course, there's 8 healing archetypes that I've distilled. And so there's, you know, there are going to be other people in the world that have the mystic as their lead and the shaman as their veiled archetype. But at the same time, of course, you know, there's so many other things that kind of come into the mix that make me unique to someone else that has a different combination. But it's like, it's just, rather than them being labels or definitions to kind of stamp on your forehead, they're, for me, it was really a pathway it was a pathway of permission. I can be this because this is who I am. It's sure there's a name to it, but it just opens the floodgates for me to just be what felt normal for me.
Yeah.
And the less shame I felt around it, the more it came through my work, and the more others were like, I love that you bring that into this work. I love that you blah blah blah. And
that's it. Because on some level, we know all of our gifts, don't we? We know they're there, but sometimes we just don't look at them in the way that we need to in order to really leverage them through our work, and for others to see them and for them to have an impact on others, you know, because that's what business is all about. It's like when you have an impact on someone else's life, that is valuable.
Yes.
And that's where the money translation happens, isn't it?
And with ease. You don't have to chase the money, because I love this word, magnetize, like you literally become something like a moth to the flame, and because you're so in yourself, and I really mean this in a way that is, you know, really luscious, you know, like you're just so into yourself because you're loving what you're doing, rather than trying to create something to get 100 sign-ups or to get you know, and there's something really, I think sometimes as practitioners we underestimate how transparent we really are, because people are pretty clued up, and they can also get a sense when someone's being authentic or when someone's actually putting on a show.
Yeah.
And I really can see the not coincidence, the connection to, in the earlier years of my work, where I did try to be like my Reiki master, looking slow, because I was trying to be someone and something that I wasn't, and trying to say the things that she said and do the things that she did and work the way that she did. And I looked at my arm in the air one day and just went, this shit's not working. What am I wrong, you know? And it was actually her that said to me, you're not being yourself.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So important. And it's like creating your business from the inside out. You know, just touching on what you said about, it's not about having a goal, I'm getting 100 sign-ups. It's about, I just have to be me first. I actually have to go within first. And you are such, I love that about your story. You're a beautiful example of how that inner work transformed your business in terms of, you know, success.
Absolutely. By far.
Yeah. Wow, Sarah Kay, I'm so in awe of the work that you do. It is so needed, and it's something that, especially in the wellness industry, is just it's magic. It's so transformational, and I just love the work you're doing in the world.
Thank you, sister. And it's a pleasure to share it.
Yes.
Initiate by fire to get here, but a pleasure to share it, definitely.
Yeah. I love it. And so tell us, how can people find out more about what you do?
Okay, alrighty. So there's a couple of places. So my website, which is just sarahkjones.com.au, folks can actually do the first stage of this inquiry, which is finding out what their lead healing archetype is. There's a free quiz on my website. There's a few places you can find it, but there is like this little kind of hot pink pop-up that comes up on the website that says discover your healing superpowers. So you just click on that, it takes you there. I'm also on Facebook as well, but again, there's a link to that on my website. So the first part of that inquiry, like I said, is free, and once you've completed the quiz, you actually get a 12, maybe 13-page detailed, you could say, guide on that archetype, from its strengths, its weaknesses, 3 pages of this archetype, of course, speaking in the first person. And for me, it was like they have their own voice, this archetypal energy.
Yeah.
And all sorts of details, but also tips on how you can embody that archetype more, things to look out for, like flags of when that archetype is perhaps working against you rather than for you, that sort of thing. So that's probably the best port of call. It's obviously lots of other details on the website of all sorts of other things that I offer, but I really love just pointing people to that.
Yes.
To just get it, and there's so much information there to begin with that there's plenty to run with.
Yes, and I can highly recommend it. I've done Sarah Kay's test as well on my own archetype, and very enlightening, I must say. So I definitely think even if you're not in the wellness industry, it can be useful to do as well, just in terms of how you have an impact as a person on other people. So love it, Sarah Kay. Thank you so much. I love your practical advice, and you are a shining light in the world. Thank you.
Thank you, sister. It's a real honour, actually, to be sitting here in front of you.
It's fun, isn't it? It's a bit of a novelty. I've loved it too.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Pleasure.